I'm Frank Rich, and I'm here. Thank you. I'm like all of you, an incredible fan of Man on the Inside here. Very happy to be here and talk about last season, this season. I've seen all of it. I know you've only had the pleasure of seeing 2, so I'm going to give a lot of spoilers. No, anyway. So let me introduce our assembled tonight in the order in which they're coming out. Lilah Richcreek Estrada. Mary Elizabeth Ellis. Mary Steenburgen. Ted Danson. And the creator, writer, and director of this fantastic show, Mike Schur. So I have a bunch of things to ask and for us all to discuss. I want to start.
You have to talk to your mic, Frank.
Sorry. I'm not a pro. Want to start for a second with the previous season. Such a powerful season, and I'm curious to hear the after story of it from all of your point of view. The idea of taking on a home like that for older people, trying to do it and doing it realistically, based on what I know, dealing with the people who work at a place like Pacific View, the people who live there, dealing with issues of grief. I imagine in your real life from friends after the first season aired, you got some personal responses of how people reacted to the content of it beyond just loving the show, but the humanity of it and the dark humor of it. And I'd be curious to know, anyone who wants to share a story about that would be great.
I will start by only saying that the part of the reason we wanted to make the show is because the themes in the documentary, The Mole Agent, are so universal. And it's an all-time record, I would say, for anything that I've been working on and put out into the world, of people coming up to me and saying, like, I am going through this with my parents or with my friend's parents or my wife's parents or husband's parents. Like, thank you for portraying this. Specifically, one of the characters in the first season is going through memory loss, but also just the sort of trials and tribulations of aging isn't a thing that is depicted on TV a lot. I think this country is terrible at discussing it in many ways, and as a result, we hide from it or don't engage with it. And of all of the things I've ever worked on, I think the most people came up to me to say that it struck a personal chord with them. I don't know if you all had that similar feeling, but it was wild how many people said that to me.
It's also wild because Netflix drops everything, around the world all in the same moment. So that reaction, it was like a wall of emotion. We were out to dinner once, and some lady came up, and usually I'll go, oh, thank you, and do a little chuffa, and for some reason,
really respectful to your fans.
So if I say chuffa, you'll just walk away. Anyway, this time I kept my mouth shut, and she told this amazing story. They had lost the child shortly before this came out, and the child's sister was just ensconced in her room and wouldn't come out and wouldn't join the family and was just isolating. And the mother and father started to watch A Man on the Inside and stopped and said, please, I think you would really enjoy this. You really should come and watch this with us. And I don't know it wasn't like this glorious happy ending, but she came out, she was not isolating, they became a family together again and dealing with grief together as a community, which was really moving. Top that.
And anyone come and say, this is complete crap, I don't know what you're doing. No, what, I'm curious if you heard, any of you heard from anyone who works at a senior citizen.
I do. I have a friend from college who actually runs senior centers in Florida, and she was like, "Oh my God, my whole Facebook group is like exploding with how real this is and how funny and how touching." Because I don't know. I think so many of us, when we're dealing with tragedy, just lean into the comedy of things. Because like, if you don't laugh, you're crying, and sometimes you're doing both. And so I think it was nice for them. And my great grandmother was, went through Alzheimer's, and also it was like a lot of that, like our family leaning into humor to be able to get through it. So yeah.
When you started on the first season, did you anticipate that there might be a second season, given that it's based on a documentary that had a beginning, middle, and end? You could have let it go. And when did you decide that a second season was likely or in store?
Well, the fun thing about this idea is that the story of the documentary, and thus the first season of the show, is very specifically, again, about a guy who processes the loss of his wife, and he's kind of like shrinking into himself a little bit, and his life is getting very small, and then kind of on a whim, he pushes the boundaries of his life out a little bit and is rewarded for it with new friends and new experiences and happiness and a healed relationship with his daughter. But the fun thing that we realized very early was like, if there are more seasons, now the story is just Ted Danson's a private detective. And that is an infinitely refillable premise, right? Like that, now it's just this dude is a detective. So yeah, like I do revere the documentary, and I say in the writer's room all the time, the documentary has to be our North Star. The way that the documentary made you feel has to be the way this show makes you feel. And as you can see from those 2 episodes, the story in the first season of Charles and his daughter Emily, kind of with a strained relationship and working through how to make that relationship better, that sort of like adult child and adult dynamic, like, we were like, okay, that's something we can preserve. We shifted over to Julie and her mom. Like, there are themes that I think we can continue that will remind everyone of the first season. But you can just tell, I love detective stories. I love them so much. I think they're so fun. I've read every Dashiell Hammett story and every John le Carré story. There are infinite like variations on a theme that I think are so fun. And so now that will be, as long as the show lasts, that will be our starting point, is can we tell a good detective story? The 7th episode of this season is a heist episode, which is another favorite genre of mine. And when we were breaking that story, I was like, this has to work as a heist. This can't just be kind of, a gesture at a heist story. This has to be a real heist story. And I said in the room, like, this should be as satisfying as it is when you go see something like Ocean's 11. And then one of the writers started referring to the episode as Ocean 75 Plus. Which is fantastic. Like, we almost actually called the episode that. But I just love that now we're in this zone where we have a show about adult family relationships and aging and all of those sorts of things. But at its essence, it is a story about a man who became a private detective very late in life and loves doing it and is good at it. And that, to me, like, that'll be what we do every year that we can do it.
I share your affection for the detective genre and the heist genre, and since most of you haven't seen 7 yet, you're really in for a treat, because it's heist, 70. It's Ocean 75 Plus, but it also almost has like a kind of Blake Edwards farcical thing going on. It's very funny, as well as delivering in the genre. I want to go back to one other issue that we just passed by in this, which I think is so important too, and it becomes even at least as much or more so in season 2, the idea of parents dealing with adult children. We've seen, since the whole history of television, is parents dealing with children or dealing with teenagers, right? But as a shrink said to me, what I thought was a very wise remark a while back, it's nothing compared to having an adult child and how you deal with an adult child. And so I'm curious to hear people's thoughts about that, and including the two children in our group here, because it's a different note that you don't often see in television. So please, any thoughts?
Well, I feel like Lilah should talk about her and Constance. Constance Murray plays her mom, because that's like the big, I would say the big emotional theme of the year, really, besides Second Chances, which is Charles's story. But that our big move this year in that genre was finding your mom. And after we literally learned zero about you in the first season.
Yeah, that was really cool to shoot, honestly, because I became a mom like 5 weeks before starting season 2. So to so to shoot something as an adult child while also then having like a brand new baby of my own was wild. But yeah, I think showing that I have a very close relationship with my mom, so playing something where, but even still, like, we're very close and we've always had good communication, but still there's always going to be strain, and there's always that's always going to be there no matter what. And so it was really cool to be able to explore that on screen and show Julie being like a real human after we don't know anything about her, and she presents so tough and all of that, and she's really a mess and just as human as anyone else. And yeah, I think it's very universal, and that was really fun to play.
I want to jump in here too, because we have such a nice scene. There's a Thanksgiving episode in which, like, Charles has his idea of what Thanksgiving is supposed to be. Mona has her idea of what Thanksgiving is supposed to be. My character is trying to make sure that Thanksgiving is whatever my dad thinks that it should be, because I don't want him to be sad. And also my kids need to be happy. And then it's our, first time that we get to have sort of a real human connection as well. And my character lost her mom and gets to finally start dealing with her own grief on that after taking care of her father in the first season and making sure her dad's okay. And to be able to have a connection between two people who both have conflict with their parents, but for very different reasons and sort of on very different levels. But just that connection, it's what this show does so well, Mike. It brings in the human experience of, we all have conflict in our families, with our kids, with our parents, with our siblings, with our spouses, and how do we pull that into a show that people watch, hopefully with their families around the holidays, and really connect.
And I feel like, especially around the holidays, I would imagine it's very cathartic to see conflict get played out and resolved, and see it be represented on screen in many different ways. Conflict for very different reasons.
I just want to say that I actually do not have any conflict in my family.
Oh my God, good for you.
No one. It's incredible. Like, nowhere.
It's because our show fixed it, right, though?
No, it's always
before?
been this way. I've literally never had any problem with anyone in my life.
And that is dissociation.
One thing, among the many other things we're talking about and other things I like about the show, the older characters are not, we've come a long way from Golden Girls, and but sometimes not that far. I mean, and the show has a tone, and this is a question for Mike, but also for all of you as actors who have to uphold that tone, that's very hard to describe. I mean, it has some resemblance to some of your previous shows, right? But there is a certain amount of black humor, and there's a certain amount of emotion. It's not it's funny, but it's not ha-ha funny. I think of Ted being Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's like the un-Curb Your Enthusiasm tone, I think, which is not a knock on that because that's great too. But this is something different. So how do you find that? How do you, both as a writer and director, and then as actors, rein it in to the point where you keep it real, get the laughs? I think that's, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's much more difficult to pull off than it looks. It seems effortless on screen.
It's so funny. This is like the 5th different show I've worked on where someone has described it as funny but not ha-ha funny. I feel like I'm trying. When The Office started, The Office was my first writing job, and we had when it didn't fail, much to everyone's surprise, and then we started doing panels like this. There was like this confusion on the part of the people who'd be leading the panels, going like, no one ever tells a joke, and no one ever says anything funny. Why was that your approach to the? And we were like, sorry. I think that tone is the hardest thing in every show, by far. It's the hardest thing to describe. It's the hardest thing to aim for. Unless it's, The Naked Gun, right? Then you're like, okay, I know what this tone is. But for any show, it's very, very hard to, you sort of, I've said this many times, I'll say it one more time. There's a probably apocryphal story about how Michelangelo carved the David, which is that someone said, Maestro, how did you possibly manage this? It's a miracle or whatever. And he said, no, it was actually very simple. I got a piece of marble and I removed everything that wasn't the David. And I think that tone sometimes is that. Sometimes you find it by just people pitch jokes or people do things on screen or a director has an idea. And for some reason, you're just like, I don't think that's right. And even if you don't know why, and you remove things that aren't what you're going for, and what you're left with is the tone of the show that you have. In this case, I think, again, we were guided by the documentary, which has a wonderful tone. It's very gentle. It's sort of elegiac in its approach to the characters, and it is very funny, but it's not ha-ha funny in most cases. But so we use that as the baseline. And then after that, it's like you just get the right actors, and you get the right writers, and the right directors, and the right costumers, and everybody together, and you all figure it out together. Like people pitch costume ideas for Mona, and you're like, I think she's a little cooler than that. And then people pitch ideas for a set, and you go like, I think that's a little muted or whatever. And after a while, what you're left with is, it's like a reverse magic trick where you're left with the thing that you wanted, even if you didn't actively set out in every case to do what you got. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I always thought of it. And also, to put a fine point on that, what I'm saying is that this show is as important to the arts as Michelangelo's David. You got that?
That's what I got. That's what I got. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to, if people didn't get that, that was the point.
Let's keep in mind, Michelangelo never got a Golden Globe.
Yeah, right?
But,
wasn't even nominated.
In doing this show with its particular aspects that we've been talking about, were there some surprises in the execution of it that you didn't see coming?
I don't know. Maybe that's probably a better question for actors. We approached Mary about doing this. I think it was before season 1 even ended, wasn't it? Weren't you on set we were shooting the finale? I think I maybe said hey.
You said something about it, but I've been in this business a long time, so I took I took my husband's words and went chuffa chuffa chuffa. Just don't pay attention, because probably will never happen that you'll be in a Mike Schur, Morgan Sackett amazing comedy. So I heard it, and then in our house we tried not to talk about it.
Well,
except when I come home from seeing either one of you guys, then it was like being grilled.
Yeah,
Did they say
I
anything?
did grill.
Did they say
Yeah.
anything?
Anything at all?
We were very excited.
well,
about
we
it.
definitely had the idea for you to do it at the end of season 1, and I think I brought it up to you. We were shooting one of the last scenes of season 1, and then obviously just wrote the part for you, but how was the experience? I'm just doing Frank's job now for some reason.
I'm happy to talk about
I'll take it.
How was the experience? Was it what you thought it would be?
Was it the David?
Yeah, it definitely was the David. First of all, we came in and read 4 episodes one day, then came in 2 days later or something and read the next 4 episodes. And even your writers, who are really actually pretty good actors, reading it, and the energy in the room and the sweetness of it, and it was funny and it was moving, and I just sat there going, I cannot believe how lucky I am, and really try not to screw this up. And it was just then the doing of it. Well, we shared a trailer, mostly because he has a really big one, and I thought it's gonna be. Oh my God, you're annoying. And we brought our dog to work. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but we did sign all the papers and everything, and every day. And then we just got to do one amazing scene after another with all these incredible actors, and you know, however corny it is, I adore my husband. And by the way, long before I knew him, was a huge fan of how he does this thing, you know, like first-year acting students, everybody always thinks, oh, you can cry. Well, everybody can cry. You know, it's really not that hard. But doing what these guys do so elegantly and beautifully is like ice skating. It's like precision ice skating, and it can't be taught. And so I'd always been this huge fan of his, you know. And so to actually get this experience of doing this with him with such stupendous writing and was just an absolute thrill. It was, you know, I can't even be too cool about it. It was just amazing.
It literally, I think every actor on the set feels the same way. Every crew member feels the same way. Mm-hmm. Mike and Morgan, producing partner, you know, you have created a family of crew members who drop everything to come work with you. You have the same with actors. You all have seen actors that you go, oh, they were in that and that. Because of the purposefulness of what you're doing and how well it's executed, and that sense of we're going to make something really good, and it's going to have purpose in the world, it just draws people to you. So
it was a real thrill, I got to say, to hear you all applaud when you saw Mantzoukas show up.
yes.
He's going to be so happy that when I tell him that.
And by the way, watching him on set, I was like, I don't understand how this is going to fit in the show, but I totally trust Morgan and Mike that it will, and it does perfectly.
Half of his lines, I would say, are improvised, roughly.
Hilarious.
That whole thing about like, I don't know who Dr. Lucy Patterson is. I assume she's dead. Wait, is that the case you're working on? Am I a suspect? I had nothing to do with it. That was just him. And it's like,
you guys.
but it's why you get him so that he says things like that, and it's different every take, you know.
Jason's my neighbor, and Jason's my neighbor, and I'm telling him we had this conversation. I will find him.
Going back a second to Ted and Mary and acting together as a married couple, it starts out as a sort of sweet, meet cute relationship in this, and then you start to really annoy each other. and I'm fascinated. That must have been fun to do. Talk about doing it, because, you know, I don't want to go too much into later episodes, but you know, it becomes somewhat contentious, and so have you? I know you've done some acting together before, but did you ever think you'd be having this vibe between you of sort of? You almost seem like exes, you know, reuniting on screen rather than a happily jubilant married couple.
Well, they're very different, those two people, in so many ways. What is your line that you say about who we are?
Oh, there's several, but I'm the kind of guy who, waits for the light to change and walks in the crosswalk very quickly. And Mona does cartwheels through traffic to get to the other side.
So when they have conflict, they're not coming from a single understanding of the problem. They're coming at it from very different places. And his character has had a life and raised a child and has grandchildren. And I've been free floating to some degree. I think the Wheeler College is Mona's true love, but she's also free floated around the world finding musical instruments and having crazy adventures and not as committed to a family life as you've been. So it's hard for them eventually to kind of, but anyway, you'll have to watch. But in terms of it being, there was one scene, which I also don't want to be a spoiler, so I won't really say what it is, but it was a scene that was, I couldn't get my line out, which doesn't ever happen to me. I literally could not get this line out. And I finally realized that it wasn't anything to do with the line. It was to do with my grief at what I was having to say, my character was having to say. And but
It was about how handsome Ted is.
that's
ahead of
not
the
true.
sex
I
scene.
taught
Right.
our grandchildren to, when they were calling him and he wasn't paying attention, I said, just say, "Oh, handsome Teddy." And now they all say that to him. And every time.
Yeah, when people ask you about chemistry or acting together, you hire really good actors. Everyone here are, we're all good actors, and then you have amazing words, and you don't fuck up the words, and you have chemistry, and you get to take the story anywhere you want. If you've hired the right people and you're a really good writer, I really do believe it starts with the writing. And then we would go out of our way, and I think we all do, to not mess it up by meaning, make sure you're truly there in the moment. Really be there. And the words and the situation will take you someplace really kind of special. And we would, make sure we would check in, but right after they said action, we'd look at each other and go, or whatever. So sorry, it's back to you, Mike, the writer creator. That's when things work. It's this. It starts with the writing, and when you have great writing.
Is there a blooper reel of the scenes you two did together where you messed up as a married couple?
We don't mess up.
I'm not going to lie. The blooper reel that we play at our rap party is easily 80% Ted screwing up and then cursing at himself. I mean, it's right? It's like
Thank
80.
you for saying that.
It's
Yeah.
Thank you.
80% him going like knocking on our door and going like, "Hello, shit, sorry, shit, sorry." It's over, and it's incredible. And like, it really is, it's wonderful to watch, because there are times when I've been watching Ted act for a very long time, and I've worked with him for 10 years, and there are times when it looks so effortless and so wonderful and so magical, and it's actually a relief to see him screw up sometimes. 'Cause I'm like, okay, he's a mortal among us. He's just a guy.
In my defense, comedy is this delicate little dance, and if you get off on the wrong foot, you're screwed.
Yes,
And you do have to stop.
You abort takes like instantly though. Like, like literally, someone opens a
So I
door and you're
went
like, nope,
this,
forget
and
it,
so-
forget it. Yeah.
What about, it's so rare in the business, particularly for leading actors to play their own age when they're older. Talk about that. I mean, it's something you don't see that much of.
I did not play my own age.
We had to age her up. I'm so sorry. No one's ever been angrier at me.
2 years.
There's the line in the premiere where she says, "I was 18, I performed at Woodstock, and if you do some basic math, an 18-year-old at Woodstock has to be a person of a certain age, and that age happens to be older than Mary really is. And so I came out on the set one day when she said, for the scene at the park, on the bench, when she says, "How old are you?" He says, "I'm 70." She says, "I'm 74." She goes, "I am not 74."
But that night you weren't prepared for
No,
it, and you were kind of stumbling.
I knew
and
there was a reason that we did it, and I couldn't remember. And then I remembered after a couple takes, and I went running back. I was like, no, there's a reason. There's a reason.
Well, of course, I love the reason, so I was fine with that. My character played at Woodstock. Okay, I can accept that. But yeah, I'm actually 72, just in case any of you. But what was your question about?
The question is, it's so character actors are allowed to age. I feel like Sally Struthers is an example of that, and it's great to see her and Veronica Cartwright and all these wonderful performers. But for you're playing romantic leads in this, among other aspects to your characters, and that doesn't happen that often in the business. It really doesn't. And besides the rarity of it, yes, it's definitely a tribute to Mike to take this on, and not just with the two of you, but with all these other wonderful people who come in and out of the show. But it's different. I mean, do you stand outside yourself at all? And I'm not articulating this very well, and say this may be more apropos to Ted than Mary, who's the ingenue of the situation. But you're basically playing exactly your age, and yet it's a hard job to play your own age. Talk about that. It's not like you fall out of bed and do it. It's.
I don't know about the how to or whatever, but it was after The Good Place, but before. There was a 2-year span where we weren't working together, and I really, really said to myself, I want to be able to I want to be blessed or lucky enough to act throughout my entire life, trying to figure out what it's like to be funny at every age. And so to me, this is a blessing, that they gave it to me. The guy with Sergio in the documentary is 82, I think, or something. So I was kind of lucky they gave it to a 77-year-old. But to me, it's a great joy, and the fun is, hey, there's no shelf life out there, you all. You get to play forever. Keep going,
That's very powerful.
So yeah, it's a blessing.
You could have.
Oh, by the way, sorry. And then I watched the first screening and I go, fuck, I am 77. I've been pretending, noblesse oblige. Yeah, I'm 77. I am.
Oh, don't leave me. I know. I sat with you.
You could have, the character. You could have done the show 10 years ago and gotten away with it, right? Playing older than you are. Do you think would you have played it? Do you know more now than you would have known as a somewhat younger or even late middle age actor?
I think I've also been lucky in, maybe this happens to everybody, but that I get to act out something that has come to me as a person or I need to look at as a person. And the older you get, the word gratitude becomes real, and curiosity becomes, I really need to stay curious. I need to be part of all those things now in my life are genuine. So to play somebody who's going through that, and the conversation that Mike is having in these last 2 seasons, and most of the things he writes are important conversations to be had out there. Sometimes we're not talking about them enough. I think we're beginning to, as a society, talk about them, and it's such an honor to be part of that. I feel useful and purposeful, and anyway.
Well, that's very powerful. And let me take the same question and move it away from these two characters a second. What do you feel, leaving aside the two people you're playing in this show, what do you feel you know as actors now in general that you might not have known 15 years ago or 30 years ago? Are there skills or the things that you tap within yourselves that you might not have done, even with good writing, good roles, and so, in past parts of your career?
Well, I came here to this city from North Little Rock, Arkansas, when I was 18 years old in 1972, the same year Ted came here. And I studied with Sandy Meisner at the Neighborhood Playhouse. And I had massive dreams that were probably much smaller than imagining sitting here tonight. They were more realistic dreams, but for me they were massive. And my first movie was with Jack Nicholson. I'm not going to give you my whole career, I promise. I'm going to answer your question.
No,
in 1977, I was cast as his leading lady, and I had to hang up. They retired my locker at the Magic Pan, where I was a waitress, for me to go be the lead in a movie with Nicholson. And so I took my going to sleep dream away, not my realistic dream, but my going to sleep dream. And I didn't know what to dream about for a while. And then my dreams became about having a life, like a really good life, and finding love and having children and being a good mom and doing all that and still getting to keep my career. And a lot of the things that these two are in the midst of right now, And it took me a while to, and I'm very close with my ex-husband, Malcolm McDowell. But then I found this guy, and what I find is that the dreams keep getting more and more interesting and quirky and funny, and I'm amazed by all of them. I think I was saying that backstage to you, that it's such a friggin' privilege. And you were saying gratitude, and so if I could say what's different about this moment, that young girl was just trying to understand what she'd thrust herself into, but this person is grateful for every single inch of it, And so something like this is just most beautiful writing, an honor to do, incredible actors to work with. I just go to work every day going, how did this happen? I'm so lucky. And that's what you have at 72 that you might not have when you're younger. You're worried about, how do I look? Where's my position in Hollywood? Mm-hmm. We don't really think about that stuff so much anymore. Well, Ted thinks about how he looks, but that's...
But we all think about how he looks.
That's true. That's true. Ted rules the makeup trailer. Let me just tell you. And stuff is said in there that it'll go in our books, right? I mean,
yes.
Yeah. I really hope we all get to be back here. I hope we get to do a third season. Third? Yeah, third.
Fourth, fifth, yeah, all of them.
So that you all can come back, having seen these two and what they did this year. And all the questions, or a lot of the questions, going your way, because you guys are so spectacular.
Magnificent.
But everything's a
work,
spoiler alert, so we can't talk about it.
It's really
I
good.
can say, I think without spoiling it, that both of your characters really go in unexpected directions. They grow, and their emotional tone changes, and even the sense of humor of both of them changes in this season. Having only seen 2 episodes, you can't obviously see the whole arc, but it's quite, I think it's sort of one of the many surprises in this season, that you have that payoff, that it goes to make them deeper. There'd be other ways to do it that would be, just keep you in the molds you were in season 1, and that's it. And you would execute it brilliantly as you did in season 1, but it must be exciting to work on that. Third season, let me, first of all, one thing more about second season. I thought it was incredibly prescient that ahead of the wars that have taken over American universities and the president attacking them, that you had this horrible, played by my friend Gary Cole, this horrible billionaire bully running. It's incredibly timely. Was that and prescient, I guess? Was that your intention?
To some extent, yes. I am a huge believer in if you can make it work financially, which is getting harder and harder, of going to a liberal arts college and getting a liberal arts education. The reasons for this are simple. Life is waiting for you on the other side. Job and problems in the world and family and mortgage and car payments and all that stuff. It is waiting for you on the other side. But from 18 to 22, give or take a year or so, you go to this place where your only job is to be a sponge and to learn things. That is, I mean, who among us doesn't wish that we could all be back there right now? If, I mean, not really, but it's just such a wonderful thing that got thrown into the mix, for me at least. And when I was in college, I was like, I'm gonna take the weirdest classes I can take. I'm gonna take a Norse mythology and pre-Socratic Greek philosophy and some weird sociology class and cultural studies, and I was as impractical as I could be. And my grandmother, a child of the Depression, called me on the phone my freshman year and said, "What are you going to major in?" And I said, "I think I'm going to major in English." And she started crying. And she said, "There are no jobs. You're going to starve." And I said, "Kiki, I'll be okay. I promise I'll be okay." Because I just felt like one way or another that was the way to prepare myself, that the way to prepare myself for the world was to be impractical. And this sort of weird assault, there's an assault on upper education from 100 angles right now. One of them is from just people who disparage it. Another is from people who are trying to leverage it for their own use. Another is just that it costs $100,000 a year, which is an absurd amount of money. And there is a fourth wing of attack, which is what Gary Cole's character kind of ends up. I don't want to spoil too much, but like there are folks who believe that the only purpose of an education is like learn how to code and then go to Silicon Valley and work in the tech industry. And that is like, to me, the death of humanity. Is if everyone does the same thing and what we do is like computer programming, that's the end to me. And so it was always a goal of this season in some small way to just make an argument on behalf of impracticality as an educational system. I think the more we focus on practicality, the narrower the breadth of human knowledge and understanding and community will get, and I think that is a death knell. And so I just wanted to make a little argument in the margins of a season that has a lot of other stuff going on. I wanted to make a little argument on behalf of the places like Wheeler College that basically say to kids, come here, do whatever you want, be a sponge, meet other weird people, like talk to them, get to know them, meet people from different places, study things that have no use in the that you could never ever use, and that is a path towards a better life, and I truly believe that. So yeah.
And
Beautifully said.
I also, sorry if I can just, I also feel that, well, I guess you're not supposed to say what you think the audience will feel, but I do think that people will fall in love with Wheeler College as much as they fell in love with Pacific View Retirement Home, because of what you just said is reflected in the depiction of our college.
We have a lot of folks who went to colleges like Wheeler and on our writing staff and on the cast and crew, and we mined their experiences a lot. We talked to a lot of them about what it was like and the weird little traditions. We have a woman who works with us who went to Carleton College in Minnesota, which is this college that Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec went to. And they have this tradition there where they have a softball game that is played continuously throughout an entire day in the spring when the year's almost over, and everyone at the school plays in the game. So there's like 28 infielders and 35 outfielders, and people, like, they rotate in and out, but anyone who wants to play plays, and they everybody comes and takes an at bat or two and then plays in the field, and it's just this massive community thing. It goes from like sun up to sundown, and there's also people like grilling food and like handing out free food. And then at the end of the day, as the sun sets, the entire student body, which isn't a ton of kids, but it's 1,000 kids, the entire student body goes and like stands on the field and they just sing songs together. And it just makes you want to cry. Like how could you think of like a more memorable moment to share when you're 22? You imagine that you're graduating from that school. It's the end of your senior year, and you're standing out on a softball field in the middle of a beautiful part of Minnesota, singing songs with everyone that you went to college with. Like, how I would ask, how is that less practical in terms of a way to teach you how life works? How is that less practical than a computer science class? I would argue it's way more practical.
You've set yourself a high, if there is, and I hope there will be a season 3, it's a high bar, these two settings for these two seasons, because there's such point to them, and I assume that you're not going to do a prison, so I have a few, before we conclude, I have a few audience questions, if I can put my hands on them. Oh, that's okay, it's on this. This is for Ted. As your character has a very cool job as his second chapter, what would you pick as the next job if you've ended your acting career?
I'd be a podcaster.
And what would your podcast be called?
Where everybody knows your name.
And where could folks find it and download it?
That'd be Sirius XM.
You owe me $50, Ted.
I usually have a glib answer. I'd be a butler, because I do love buttling.
You think he's joking, but he's dead serious.
This is a true story. Patrick Dennis, this comic writer, wrote Auntie Mame, very successful novelist in the 50s and 60s, left it all behind and became a butler. Oh, really? For the family that, whatever the family was that owned McDonald's, that started McDonald's.
The Kroc family?
In the Midwest, and they never knew who he was. He never told them. Mike, this is a question for you.
I couldn't do that.
Yeah, so it's nice to see a show set in San Francisco. How did you go about choosing it for the setting?
The name of the home in the actual real Chilean documentary is the San Francisco Home for the Elderly, and I was trying to decide where to set it. And then I noticed that on a rewatch and was like, well, that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. But honestly, another reason is I love that city. I think that city is so weird and wonderful and specific and great. It has incredible history. I also love that, like, most cities that are built on a hill, the people who built the city were like, well, how should we make it easier for people to get around? And the people who built San Francisco were like, nope, we're going to take a city and just lay it over the hills. And you're just constantly doing this and then this. I mean, it's like remember Q*bert, the game Q*bert? That's the way I feel when I'm in that city. It's so bizarre, but I love it. I love it so much. And, we have some plans for season 3, which we're working on now in anticipation of hopefully getting a season 3 order. And the goal is very much to have it be about San Francisco in a way that the first 2 seasons even haven't been. We want to go and shoot there a lot more. Yes, there's some big ideas for how to like really show off San Francisco, because it's a city I adore.
That's thrilling. I have to say, that's great. And I guess it's not the easiest place to shoot.
No, it's almost impossible.
Just trying
But
to
Morgan will figure
speak
that out.
over the seals barking on the pier and the wind blasting.
It is an
here.
absolute like lunatic asylum of a city to shoot in. Like the number of obstacles you have to jump over and through and around are enormous, but that's what kind of makes it sound fun.
Yeah, I'm in.
I have to say, I think speaking for viewers, we'd love to see you there and bring it off. And so our fingers are crossed. And thank you for all the 2 seasons so far and for tonight. great.
Thank you,
poem to
Frank Rich. You honor us.
Thank
by
you.
doing
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.